So we like Christmas. We like snow days when schools are canceled and we can do whatever we want or just sleep. You know who I'm talking to. But what we definitely don't like is the cold. And how do we get our snow days? Blizzards, of course. But this blizzard I'm talking about didn't happen during our time. And so not a lot of people had those cozy warm blankets were available to a lot of people. You had to be rich or something like that to have them back then. But let's not make this long today. I'm talking about the Great Blizzard of 1888 from the Daily Life section in Story of America cards. The Great Blizzard of 1888, also known as Great Blizzard of 88 or Great White Hurricane, was one of the most severe recorded blizzards in American history. The storm paralyzed the East Coast from the Chesapeake Bay to Maine, as well as Atlantic provinces of Canada. Snow fell from 10 to 58 inches, 25 to 174 centimeters in parts of New Jersey, New York, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, and Connecticut, and snowdrifts in extents of 50 feet and 15 meters. Railroads were shut down, and people were confined to their homes for up to a week. Railway and telegraph lines were disabled, and this provided the impotence to move these pieces of infrastructure underground. Emergency services were also affected. In 1888, after one of the mildest winters in many years, most residents amongst the East Coast were beginning to think about baseballs and the first daffodils. But early in March, a storm center that had originally been spotted in Colorado zipped across the country, leaving havoc in its wake. Most observers believed the storm would lose its strength before reaching the East Coast, and they would have the right to not another storm, but it formed in Georgia and joined with the Colorado storm over Cape Hatteras near North Carolina. I probably butchered that. Cold air was suddenly pulled in from Canada, and by Monday morning, March 12, 1888, a fierce blizzard struck Washington, D.C., New York City, and Boston, Massachusetts. Most New Yorkers started that Monday morning as they would any other workday. Snow was falling heavily, but few suspected it would get worse. After all, the weather prediction called a warning intent trend Monday, with generally fair skies. What actually happened, though, was almost unbelievable by the day's end. Some 50 inches to 128 centimeters of snow covered Connecticut and eastern Massachusetts, and 10 to 20 foot, 6 meters drifts buried towns north of New York in the Hudson Valley. By comparison, New York's 21st inches 60 centimeters of snow seemed insignificant, but the city was almost buried by massive drifts rifted up to by 50-mile-per-hour winds. Food delivery ceased as all trains and roads in the city closed down, telegraph lines failed, and soon nearly all communications with the outside world was shut down. By late Monday afternoon, most hotel rooms in New York City were full with 4 to 6 people sharing a double room. Clubs and restaurants did a booming business, but only 3 theaters managed to stay open. P.T. Barnum put on a full circus for a handful of people who showed up, and only 4 ticket holders arrived at Tony Pastor's music hall. Those who suffered the most, however, were poor immigrants in New York's squalid tenements. When food ran out, local merchants who still had some on hand charged outrageous prices. Ironically, thousands of gallons of badly needed milk were sustained on railroad trains just a few miles outside of the city. Not until Friday, March 16th, did things get back to normal. The Great Blizzard of 1888 left 200 people dead from exposure in New York City alone, and businesses lost an estimated at a close to $3 million, a massive sum at the time. And that was the Great Blizzard of 1888, or how much information I can find, and what was provided from the card and the internet, and what information was accurate and good for telling. And like, this was one of the most brutal blizzards in history, and that's what we need to remember from it. If you have anything about Blizzard, the Great Blizzard of 1888 you want to tell me, please add that in the comments. And so anyway, goodbye.